Howdy folks, Rudros here, and welcome to another Lorcana Wednesday, and today we are going to be looking at some of the new toys we got in Set 6 Azurite C for Pirates. Pirates got in a lot of different colors, and today's version is going to be Emerald as well as Ruby. If you haven't already, make sure to hit that like and subscribe button. It doesn't cost you anything, and it really helps the channel out and lets me keep putting out more Lorcana content that I'm so grateful to you for watching. So, the reason I chose Emerald and Ruby for this particular list was I was looking for the payoff card in Pirates. What is the reason to play Pirates? And previously, I felt like the biggest payout card was the Silver, Steel John Silver, the one that got more resist and lore based on how many locations you had. He seemed like, okay, if you can get this guy online, get him a lot of support, he's going to do a lot of work for you. Well, in this set, we have Daisy Duck, our pirate captain, which says whenever one of your pirate characters quests while at a location, draw a card. To me, that seemed to be the biggest payoff for it. So I thought, okay, we definitely have to do Emerald. And I was looking through some of the other colors. Was there any other payoff? Well, potentially the other one was the other pirate captain, Mickey Mouse Pirate Captain. Shift 3, whenever this character quests, chosen pirate character gets 2 attack and gains. This character takes no damage from challenges this turn. So you kind of have your removal option in the Mickey Mouse, and then you have your defensive or card draw resource renewal option in the Daisy. Now, the one thing I didn't like about the Mickey is there were not very many good Mickeys to shift on that were cheap in these colors. As a matter of fact, I don't think there were any of them. If you look at the Mickey Mouse that we have in green and red, not a single one of them is cheap enough for this Mickey Mouse to shift onto directly on turn 3. Because I thought that'd be kind of a fun idea, right? So you put out whatever pirate turn 1, maybe the new Moana, whatever your Mickey on turn 2, or maybe the Mickey's 1, you put out your other pirate on turn 2, and then 3, you shift onto this Mickey, he immediately quests, and your other pirate can challenge. Sounds awesome. There's nothing for him to shift onto in these colors, though. That seems like a major misstep. However, we do at least have the honorary Mickey, which is more Space Goo, which lets any character with shift go on to him. So you could, in theory, put a new Moana Self-Taught Sailor. She's a good challenger, hits for 3, and then put the morph out turn 2, shift into the big Mickey, immediately quest for 2. Now this Moana is a 5/2 that won't take any damage from what she's hitting. That's pretty cool. Of course, all that's got to line up, but again, it seemed like the payoff. Daisy as well. If you can keep drawing cards off of Daisy, that's a big payoff. Well, she does demand we run locations, so what locations are we running? I feel like if you're running Pirates and Ruby, you pretty much have to run Jolly Roger. It lets all your pirate characters gain rush, and they can move there for free, which is huge, so you completely get rid of that very overstated 2-cost card. It doesn't gain any lore, unfortunately, so we also threw in Skull Rock, which is made for pirates. It does give them attack, and unfortunately it only gains lore if you have a pirate there. So there is kind of this conflict with Jolly Roger and Skull Rock, but you can move them immediately to Jolly Roger, and then you can pay 1 if you have it left over to move them to Skull Rock. And then Agrabah, it's a location that threatens 2 lore. Yeah, it's got kind of a weak body, but we just needed to fill up more locations. If there's a location you like that I don't have in here that you think works really well, let me know, but these are the ones I kind of fell in favor with. So let's take a look at, our non-pirates first. Get those out of the way. You have the Diablo package, just because it's an insanely strong package in Emerald, as well as Maui Shark. So Maui Shark was a new card that I definitely wanted to try. It fits in the challenging and action recursion theme we have in here. He's very strong when he's able to challenge, especially multiple characters, and then he gains lore as well for every action you cast. If they can deal with him right away with something like an Along King Zeus, yes, he's a bit slow. Yes, you could run something like Vitalisphere if you want to make him a little faster, but I still found he worked pretty well in this list. We're running something like Dragonfire. Him being able to just recur Dragonfire, and you can really control the board with that. Similar with a Brawl, but Dragonfire is more universal. I found it to be very fun to play around with. We also have cards like Strike a Good Match, which is just a way to help you dig deeper into the deck. And Pirate's Life, just because it's fun and on brand. And it's a useful card too. Maybe not as useful as it is in like a burn list, but it's still very fun here to use it. You can recur it with Maui. If you play it with Maui on the field, you gain a total of 3 lore while your opponent loses 2. That's a 5 lore swing. That's pretty good. If you know my red decks, I like Fishhook. It's just a one-of to help you deal with some evasive characters. Let's look at the full pirate list. You have the Moana. She can't challenge unless you have a captain in play, but we do have several captains, including Wendy, Hook, who else is a captain? Daisy, and Mickey. But you're also okay just questing. If they ever challenge anything into her early, chances are it's going to be banished. John isn't really amazing, but he's just a pirate you can put out on turn 2. Wendy is a bit better. As long as you control any other pirate, she's going to gain 1 attack and 1 lore. The lore is really the bigger part. Like, 1 attack just makes for a 2/2, which is the same as a bunch of 1-drops from set 1. It's like, that part. But a 2 lore that has evasive, that's pretty solid. Hook is good if you're going against other pirates, but for the most part, it's just because he's a pirate character and a captain who can come down on 3. If they have to challenge him, you get to draw a card, and his stats are pretty good, so they probably will have to challenge him, and then he can quest for 2. He hasn't been amazing, but he's been fine. I actually like Donald a lot better, so you could build more into the Donalds if you want to, whereas him being a 3-cost 2/3 that quests for 3, that's really good. You have to have a captain in place, so sometimes that doesn't always line up. Pete, I actually really like just for the Jolly Roger. Being able to pay, it basically says pay 3 to remove a character, because if you can move into Jolly Roger for free, rush in, hit something for 5, that early in the game, there's just not really any cards that are going to survive 5 strength challenge like that. Daisies, of course, are a big payoff, as is Mickey. So that's a deck. It's pretty straightforward. This isn't anything super competitive, but if you want to mess around and have some fun with pirates, I've found it pretty enjoyable to play. Let me show you some matches. As we start off, this shows you a build when I still had both the Tigger as well as the big 7-drop Moana in. I don't think you should run that 7-drop Moana. I think it's the definition of a trap card. Yes, the payoff would be huge if you can specifically line everything up. It just never worked out, and it even had some anti-synergy with the Jolly Roger, where you want to move a lot of your cards to the Jolly Roger for free so they can rush, but then the Moana has nothing to move them to as well. So, yes, these were in an earlier build, but I'd ultimately end up cutting them. Tigger, the reason I cut him is he sounded like he would fit with the Maui Shark, right? You get this Tigger out, you have these actions you just repeat over and over again, then he's going to gain a bunch of lore. In reality and in practice, it was just too much ink. He costs 3 alone, so you're spending 3 on an evasive 0/4 that quests for 1, which means he's going to get banished by any kind of ruby removal. That didn't feel good, and I just didn't have the ink to keep feeding actions into him just for the point of proccing his effect. I don't think pirates are quite there overall, but, you know, they definitely need... I don't know. I'm not 100% sure what they're missing. Maybe more consistency. Maybe more cards that do something. Like this John Darling is. I mean, he's fine. You're playing him because he's a pirate. He's not a great card. You're not happy to play this. You're not going, oh boy, what a great card to play. It's like, well, I needed so many pirates, so here they are filling them up. Our opponent is on blue-green, so possible they'll be coming after our hand. We do have the Daisy and the Jolly Roger. In order to set the Daisy up, I'm going to need to get the Jolly Roger out this turn. I actually just say, you know what? It's better to just go in on the Diablo. The Diablo is a threat that our opponent essentially has to answer. You can't just leave a card like that sitting around. Hopefully we'll get to the Daisy. Jolly Roger is a fun idea too as a location that I've always liked, but since it's not giving you lore, it's not progressing your win condition, it's just helping you beat up on your opponent. It would be interesting to see more pirate, if they gave pirates, like if they wanted them to have a challenging theme, give them a card like the new Calhoun, where when the pirate challenges and banishes, it gains you lore. You have something like the Donald, the legendary Donald in Steel, where it gives other characters the ability to quest for more, but then that implies you have to have other characters. Like the Calhoun's a self-sufficient engine. So we do have the Daisy online, so we are ready to really pop off. Since we know our opponent's on blue-green, we don't really have to fear any kind of big board wipe, as our opponent is trying to just ramp and get to some higher level cards. And not only have I been drawing off the Diablo, yeah, he's no pirate, but it's what we need. So we put out 2 Jolly Rogers, we move everybody there, and now you're going to see the power. So Daisy quest, she draws for herself. Pirate quest, draw. Pirate quest, draw. And that right there is exactly why you want to play the Daisy. That's, to me, the biggest payoff that pirates have right now. 3 quests and drawing 3 cards, that if you have the pieces out, essentially saying whenever one of your character quests, draw a card. That's incredibly strong if you can get to that point. And even if our opponent can kind of discard our hand down, we just have so much card draw. We have double Diablos to deal with. I've got a Mickey potentially coming in next turn. And here's another point about the Tigger. You see in a hand like this, where I don't have any actions, I can't even trigger the Tigger if I want to. So I found him to be a bit overrated, but it was good to get this testing in, find out which cards I did and didn't like. I can go in on the locations here, which looks like I'm going to do. I do put out the Tigger now at this point just because I'm trying to overwhelm them with lore. he can immediately move. Not that there's a whole point. There's just really nothing they're going to be able to do with a board this wide. And yeah, you get to draw a bunch off the Diablo. I don't mind if I do, but that just shows you how strong Diablo is. So this match is pretty much over. Let's show you a different one. Unfortunately, it's very difficult to get the Mickey play lined up where you had the morph into the shift Mickey. I just couldn't get it for testing purposes, but well, at least we're getting to show Moana a bit. Our opponent's going to take another crack at us. Here we've got some uninkables with Diablo and Dragonfire. I could put out the morph, which allows me to shift the Diablo next turn, and I don't have to hard play it. I can even follow up with a natural hard play Diablo. We need to be able to draw an inkable, but at least we can discard the Dragonfire to shift with the Diablo if we absolutely need to. Our opponent's using that awesome new Sail the Azurite Sea. What a good card for blue. And they use their own Diablo to see what's coming for them. And I say, hey, hope you like your birds, because we're going to show you some bird-on-bird action here in a moment. And we draw into another Diablo. So when you just don't have enough Diablos, but at least we can play one naturally, we can shift one out for the Dragonfire for the uninkable. Now we'll at least get a card back because we draw another uninkable. I tend not to go above 12 uninkables in these lists, but sometimes it just works. Our opponent shifts our own Diablo, but I think they may have to decide to challenge with it unless they want to try to get their own card draw, which it looks like they do. Yeah, they actually sing the Sudden Chill, so I do have to discard one. Here comes their Diablo. Were you wanting to see a Pirates list? No. You wanted to see a Diablo match. But don't worry, now we'll start drawing cards. Hey, there's an actual pirate we can play. Granted, he's out of our pirate price range. And here's what I mean about Pirates too. The Daisy, as good as she is, and I do think she is a good payoff piece, she requires a lot of setup, right? She costs 4. If you want to take advantage of her the turn she comes in, you have to have not only other pirates, but a location that they're also at. That's a lot of setup versus a card like Diablo that just says, hey, by existing, I just kind of draw you cards. So it's too early for the Mickey. We put out the Jolly Roger. I go ahead and move the Moana there just because. I mean, not that she needs to rush. She actually doesn't have a captain, so she couldn't challenge anyway. But at least now we're forcing our opponent. They've got to send both Iagos into Agrabah. They want to take it off. They do take out one of the Diablo with the Iago. And this Flynn can be a real pain in the butt if we have low cards in hand. And we just lost our draw engine, so it's very possible. Still a little early for the Maui Half Shark, so at this point, well, just time to go in on the Mickey Mouse. So, when he quests, he's going to give Moana +2 attack this turn. Unfortunately, when your opponent has a bunch of evasives like this, which is why I have the fish hook in there, that there's just no way to deal with all these evasive characters, so it doesn't actually matter if they can challenge or not. Which means we need to get the shark, get the Chihu going on. The shark can attack evasive characters, and then he can start getting back some of her actions. I'm showing, oh man, like I would love to start beating you with this 5 strength Moana thanks to the Mickey. I just can't because all of your characters are evasive. But the shark will absolutely start putting in work, or just prevent our opponent from questing, which we're also completely fine with. They have a Basil, but that's not going to do it on their own. And you can tell my opponent here, he doesn't really want to quest because he knows he's just opening up to this Maui, but at the same time, well, I'm questing for 3 every turn, so you're going to have to do something. Ultimately decides to trade both Iagos into the Mickey, take off the 2 lore, and then passes right there without questing. Mickey says, no, I don't want to go away. I'm just going to come right back. So Moana and Maui are just going to quest. He can challenge into the Maui, but anything that challenges into it is just going to be banished immediately. And pretty much got him in a lock at this point. If the Maui challenges anything, he can get lore back by using an action. Oh, except he falls subject to his own song, which is You're Welcome. But at least it does give me 2 cards to draw. One of them being a Pirate's Life, which will absolutely let me close out this game. Basil's going to take out the Moana. And they think, well, I've got it, right? Because you don't have any lore now. A Pirate's Life for me. We'll take that one. Our third game, we get quite a few high-cost cards in our opening hand, so we mulligan those away, only to get the Shark back and another Dragonfire. So really not a great opening. Putting out a Jolly Roger turn 1 is like, okay. It's a little better if you're going second, because then you're setting up your challenge right away. But still not amazing. We have Johns we can go into. I could also just strike a good match if I want to dig a little deeper. Put the John out. Yeah, again, it's not super threatening. I do think pirates are fun. I'm not convinced this is their best color combination either. I wasn't really overly impressed with most of the amber pirates. I did think the Pooh's pirate ship item was pretty neat because it gave you that recursion value. But beyond that, it just, I don't know. It still just didn't really feel amazing. Maybe the best version is still something with the steel John Silver, because that card is a really good payoff. Maybe you could do Emerald Steel, and maybe you have something like the Diablos and the Daisy to potentially give you the card draw, and then the John Silver is your payoff for all that lore. But this feels good. Immediately move John Darling over. Andy draws a card when he starts questing. Again, when the Daisy goes off, I really do like the Daisy, and I think the Daisy is a worthy payoff. Unfortunately, also being a 3/3 at 4 just means she gets banished by a lot of stuff. Maybe it would be right to put something in like a Goofy to protect her, but then you're really going in all in on like the protect the Daisy plan, which maybe is worth it. But again, she's not simple either. She's not like a Diablo where it says, hey, as long as I'm exerting, I'm drawing cards when you draw. I have to see other pirates or even myself, and I need to see these locations. I got to be at these locations. So very fun card, but I think it's a bit too tricky and inconsistent and too many moving parts to make it super competitive. As our opponent is very much ramping and getting their lore from the Flaversham, we move for free. Daisy can quest as well now. And yeah, you can see, man, it feels so good when the Daisy starts going off. So we can pretty much put anything we want out here. I could just banish if I want to get rid of something. I actually go for the Skull Rock and put out the Diablo. I want to give my opponent something else they have to potentially think about threat-wise, showing that everything is at the Jolly Roger. And Skull Rock, too, it's a fun location, but the fact that it has no passive lore gain, I think locations really need to threaten the lore. Otherwise, what they have to have some other really strong purpose. Hidden Cove is a very good one. That location gains no passive lore, but it's worth it because if you can Cove on turn 2 with a Shift Diablo, that Diablo is immune to any removal in the game for that turn. So that makes it worth it. Whereas this Skull Rock, I mean, it's just one attack. Like, technically the Cove gives a bigger benefit than this Skull Rock. It's only one attack, and you only get the lore if it's a pirate. So, I don't know. Kind of weird. A little underwhelming. Here comes Cogsworth, which means our opponents are going to start having some favorable trades if they need to. And he uses Fire the Cannons, finishes that off. That not John Silver, Jim Hawkins, he gets a lot of challenger power when you're inking a bunch of cards. So I go ahead and put out the Maui. We no longer have the lore. And there's an instance, I have to put 6 ink into the Maui, so I don't have any left over to move the Skull Rock. If Skull Rock had the same stipulation as Jolly Roger, where just by existing a pirate can move there for free, I think that would make it feel pretty darn good. Here comes the big crab, Tamatoa, his nemesis Maui on the other side. And we're only at 6 lore. We're going to have to start putting some work in. Luckily, this is why I like Dragonfire, and I've kind of started warming up to Dragonfire more too, even in just direct Ruby Amethyst decks. And if you've watched my channel, you know how much I love those, because a card like Medusa, while I really like that card, there's just targets it can't hit. It can't hit something like this Cogsworth. It can't hit this Tamatoa. You don't have something like Ice Block to manipulate their attack values. So instead, you use a card like Maui. Only card left in there is Strike a Good Match. We go ahead and blow the Dragonfire and the Tamatoa. I could have used that first and then recurred it, but because I have a second one in hand, I just didn't feel the need to do that yet. But if you want to make sure you have a bunch of Dragonfires, you can absolutely do that. We cast Strike a Good Match, which that will trigger our lore as well. So now we've got 2 lore just for kind of existing on the board. I think I over-inked there. Yeah, I inked too many times, so I can't play the Diablo out like I thought. But now I can move to Skull Rock, so now I am threatening to gain a little extra lore. And you can see the power of that Maui. If I can keep him on the board and just keep recurring this Dragonfire, he also weirdly becomes a win condition on his own. Now he's not just removing stuff, he's gaining new lore as well. Strange but powerful card when it gets to do what it wants to do. Opponent inks a Fishbone Quill and puts out a Lucky Dime. We shift onto the Gym, which lets us put some damage on the Jolly Roger. He takes out all of our locations. The Maui hits, gets back the Dragonfire, which now I just immediately use again. Goodbye, Jim. Gain an extra lore. Quest again. I'm not putting on a ton of lore pressure, but now I am with the Agrabah, and I'm just showing, hey, if you don't get rid of this Maui and I can just keep recurring this Dragonfire, I'm going to put in some work against you. Opponent drops an Aerial and uses the Lucky Dime. instantly jumps up to 7 lore. Card like Ariel can be a bit troublesome, as again, you can't hit it with something like Dragonfire. That's where you almost wish you had a Tremaine, but I just don't think this deck is quite suited user. We do bring out the Daisy, instantly move John over to Agrabah. She doesn't care what location they're at, they just have to be at a location, so now John is drawing me a card with questing. And if this John Darling just said, whenever he quests, draw a card, suddenly the card's great. So I will reiterate, the payoff power of the Daisy is there if you can keep her around. We have Hook 2 for extra lore. We're just threatening a ton of lore on board. We have 6 between our characters, plus another 2 from our location. And the Maui can't even be challenged. Ariel isn't strong enough to take out the John, so unless they can get some kind of like powerful board effect, which it's steel, so maybe like double grab your sword. So they do have the Ariel sing Let It Go on the Hook, and then Whole New World, just hoping to get into something that'll save them. I'm happy for the fresh new hand of cards, but they've already used a good chunk of ink on that, so there's not a whole lot else they can do. They can Popsicle, try to dig deeper, try to find an answer, but we still are presenting lethal on board. And any actions I get back with Maui, I can just get back, strike a good match. There's Fire the Cannons. Maui is cleared. We've got almost lethal on board, 19. Is there any way we can possibly sneak it? No way to sneak it this turn, but we can also just keep putting out a bunch of threat sets as well. Deal with it. I use strike a good match, try to dig a little deeper, see if I can't find something interesting. My one concern here, too, is that it's possible for my opponent to steal. And actually, they can steal, because if they quest and dime next turn, yeah, they will win. So I actually have to run my Daisy and my John Darling into the Ariel. However, because of Skull Rock does give +1 attack, so I only have to sacrifice my Daisy. I'd kind of forgotten about that at first. And now we just flood the board and just hope they can't answer 2 locations, one of them gaining lore, all these characters. If they can wipe out our characters, then only the Agrabah is going to trigger. They put out a Tamatoa. They're trying to get to lethal. Oh, do they have it? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That's 19 lore. They're looking for one more item. And they're not going to find it. Yep. GG. Oh, almost lost it there, but we just barely hung on. It's a fun deck. Link is in the description below. Give it a try. Let me know if there's any improvements you would make. Let me know what your favorite color combination of pirates is currently in the game. I might look at some other variations, but this is the one that just spoke to me the most. Again, I'm not saying it's super competitive, but do I enjoy it? Do I think the Mickey and the Daisy are really fun? Yeah, absolutely. Anyway, I appreciate you watching. Making sure you're checking out the Lorcana Cross-Continental Challenge, or they may have changed the name recently, but either way, I'll be casting some matches on there, hopefully streaming some more. I appreciate you watching, and until next time, take care.